I found the map inside a book that wasn't supposed to contain anything. The book was an old travel journal about forgotten villages in Eastern Europe. I bought it from a small antique shop that smelled of dust and old wood. The owner told me the journal had belonged to a traveler who disappeared sometime in the 1980s. At first, the book seemed ordinary. Descriptions of mountains. Notes about roads. Sketches of churches and rivers. But near the end, one page had been glued together. When I carefully separated the pages, a folded piece of yellow paper slid out. A map. Hand-drawn. The lines were rough, as if the person who drew them had been in a hurry or afraid. Most of the landmarks had names written in faded ink. A road. A forest. A river crossing. And in the center of the forest there was a small mark. A square. Next to it someone had written 3 words, "The house waits." At first I thought it was just a strange note. But the map also had coordinates. Real ones. And when I typed them into my computer later that night, something strange happened. The location existed. Deep inside a forest in western Ukraine. Far from any town. Far from any road. Just trees, endless trees. And in the middle of them, something that looked like a clearing. I told myself it was probably an abandoned cabin. But that night, when I went to sleep, I had a dream. I was standing in the forest. The trees were tall and silent. And somewhere in the darkness ahead of me, I saw a small house. Its windows were black. Its door was open. And even though I couldn't see inside, I knew something inside that house was waiting for me. 2 weeks later I was driving through the countryside with the map on the passenger seat. The road on the map didn't exist on modern GPS systems. But sometimes old roads remain long after they disappear from official maps. After hours of driving I finally reached a narrow dirt path leading into a thick forest. There were no signs. No tire tracks. No houses. Just silence. The forest looked older than anything I had seen before. The trees were enormous. Their branches blocked most of the sunlight. And the deeper I walked, the quieter everything became. No birds. No wind. No insects, just the sound of my own footsteps on the ground. The map said the clearing should appear after about 30 minutes. But after 20 minutes I began to feel something strange. A feeling that I wasn't alone. It wasn't the normal fear of being in a dark forest. It felt different. As if something far away had already noticed me. I stopped walking. The silence around me became heavier. And then I heard something. Not footsteps. Not an animal. A sound like wood slowly creaking. Somewhere ahead of me. As if an old door had just opened. When the trees finally opened, I saw the house. It stood exactly where the map had marked it. Small. Crooked. Covered in dark moss. It looked older than the forest itself. The roof was partly collapsed. The windows were broken. But the door was open. Just like in my dream. I told myself it was coincidence. Dreams can be strange. Memories can play tricks on the mind. But when I stepped closer to the house, I noticed something that made my stomach twist. There were footprints in the dirt. Fresh ones. Leading into the house. And none leading out. The inside of the house smelled like damp wood and cold air. The floor creaked with every step. Dust covered most of the furniture, but the strange thing was, some of the dust looked disturbed. As if something had moved through the rooms recently. There were 3 rooms. A small kitchen. A narrow hallway. And 1 bedroom. The bedroom door was closed. And when I reached for the handle, I felt something strange. The metal was warm. Not cold like the rest of the house. Warm. As if someone had touched it only moments before. Slowly, I opened the door. The room inside was empty, except for one thing. A chair. Placed directly in the center of the room. Facing the doorway. Waiting. I stepped inside the room. The air felt heavier here. The chair was old but strangely clean. Almost as if someone had been sitting in it recently. I walked around it slowly. And then I noticed something carved into the wooden backrest. Words. Deep scratches made by something sharp. I leaned closer to read them. The message was simple. But it made my blood run cold. Now it's your turn to wait. And at that exact moment, I heard the bedroom door close behind me. Slowly. Very slowly, without anyone touching it. For a moment I didn't move. The bedroom door had closed with a slow, heavy sound, like old wood being pushed by an invisible hand. I turned around immediately. The handle was still. The door looked normal. But I knew one thing for certain. I hadn't closed it. The air in the room felt colder now. The kind of cold that doesn't come from weather, but from something else, something that drains warmth from the world. I walked slowly toward the door. Each step made the wooden floor groan. When I grabbed the handle, it felt different from before. Before it had been warm. Now it was ice cold. I pulled the door open. The hallway outside was empty. Exactly the same as before. Dust on the floor. Broken walls. Silence. But when I looked down, I noticed something new. Footprints. Not the ones I had seen outside earlier. These were different. They were smaller. Barefoot. And they started right outside the bedroom door. As if someone had been standing there, listening. I stepped back into the hallway. The footprints continued across the dusty floor. They led toward the kitchen. I followed them slowly. My heart was beating harder with every step. When I reached the kitchen doorway, I stopped. Something inside had changed. Before, the room had been almost empty. Just a broken table and an old stove. But now there was something else. A chair. Another chair. Placed in the middle of the room. Facing the hallway. Exactly like the one in the bedroom. Waiting. My mind tried to find a logical explanation. Maybe I hadn't noticed it earlier. Maybe it had been hidden in the shadows. But deep down I knew the truth. That chair hadn't been there before. And something inside the house had moved it. The chair in the kitchen had something lying on its seat. A photograph. The paper was old and slightly torn at the edges. I picked it up carefully. The picture showed the house. The same house. But it looked different. Newer. The wood wasn't rotten yet. The windows were clean. And standing in front of the house were several people. A family. A man. A woman. 2 children. They were all smiling. But the longer I looked at the photograph, the more something about it felt wrong. The people were smiling. But their eyes looked afraid. And then I noticed something behind them, in the open doorway of the house. There was someone else standing there. A tall figure. Too dark to see clearly. Watching the family. Watching the person who took the photo. And now, somehow, watching me. The house only had 1 floor. I had seen that clearly when I arrived. But as I stood in the kitchen holding the photograph, I heard something impossible. A sound above me. A slow step. Then another. As if someone was walking across a wooden floor upstairs. I froze. The ceiling creaked again. Heavy steps. Slow. Deliberate. But there was no second floor. No staircase. Nothing above us except the roof. The steps stopped. For a few seconds the house was silent again. And then I heard something worse. The sound of a chair scraping across wood. Directly above my head. Panic started rising inside me. I pulled the old map from my backpack. I spread it across the kitchen table. For the first time, I noticed something I had missed before. Near the drawing of the house, there were more words written in faint ink. Words so faded they were almost invisible. I leaned closer to read them. The handwriting was shaky. Uneven. Like it had been written by someone terrified. The message said, "The house does not trap you." I felt a small wave of relief. Maybe I could still leave. But the sentence continued. And the second line made my stomach drop. "The house replaces you." A sudden sound came from the hallway. A creak. Then another. Slow footsteps. Walking across the dusty floor. Coming from the bedroom. I slowly turned my head toward the hallway. The bedroom door was open again. And inside the room, someone was sitting in the chair. A figure. Perfectly still. Watching the doorway. Watching me. But the worst part wasn't the figure. It was the face. Because the person sitting in the chair looked exactly like me. For several seconds I couldn't breathe. The figure sitting in the chair didn't move. It simply stared. At me. At the doorway. At the place where I was standing frozen with fear. The face was mine. Exactly mine. Same eyes. Same hair. Same jacket. Even the small scar near my eyebrow. But something about it was wrong. Its expression was calm. Too calm. Like someone who had already accepted something terrible. Finally it spoke. Its voice sounded exactly like my own. "You found the map." I stepped backward slowly. "What are you?" I whispered. The other me tilted its head slightly. "I'm you," it said quietly. "Or, what's left of you after the house finishes." My mind refused to understand. This isn't possible. The other me smiled faintly. That's what I said too, when I arrived. It pointed slowly toward the kitchen. The photograph. The map. The chairs. They're not traps. They're instructions. I felt cold sweat on my hands. What instructions? The other me leaned forward slightly. The house needs someone to wait. The other me stood up slowly from the chair. When it moved, the floor beneath it made no sound. No weight. No presence, like it wasn't completely real anymore. "This house was built a long time ago," it said. "No one knows by who. But people who enter it eventually understand something." I swallowed. "What?" It looked at me with empty eyes. "That the forest is full of things that need somewhere to go. Memories. Echoes. Things that died but didn't disappear. And the house holds them." Its voice grew quieter. "But the house can't hold them alone. It needs someone to stay." The air inside the house became heavier. The walls creaked slowly. Like the building itself was breathing. "When someone enters the house," the other me continued, "the waiting begins. 4 days. 4 months. Sometimes for years. And eventually, someone else finds the map." My heart began racing. "And then?" The other me looked directly into my eyes. "Then they replace you." I shook my head. "No. I'm leaving." I turned toward the hallway. Toward the open front door. Toward the forest outside. But when I reached the entrance, I stopped. The forest was gone. Outside the doorway there was only darkness. Endless black fog. No trees. No sky. No ground. Just silence. Behind me the other me spoke again. Calm. Patient. "You can't leave anymore. You already crossed the line." Slowly I turned around. And my blood froze. The house had changed again. More chairs now stood in the hallway. In the kitchen. In the bedroom. Dozens of them. All facing different directions, and sitting in every chair, were people. Silent figures. Men. Women. Children. All perfectly still. All staring at nothing. Waiting. Some looked old. Some looked almost new. But the worst part was their faces. Every single one of them looked like the person who had entered the house before them. And now they were just copies. Echoes. Waiting for the next visitor. The other me walked slowly past me. Toward the front of the house. Toward the darkness outside. It stopped at the doorway. For the first time, it looked relieved. "Thank you," it said softly. "You came faster than I expected." I grabbed its arm. "Wait. What happens to me?" It gently removed my hand. "The same thing that happened to me. The same thing that happened to everyone here." It pointed at the empty chair in the bedroom. The one I had first seen. Waiting. "For now," it said quietly, "you sit." The other me stepped into the darkness. And instantly disappeared. The forest outside slowly returned. Trees. Wind. Night. As if nothing had happened. The door creaked slightly in the wind. And far away in the forest, I thought I saw a faint path forming between the trees. A path someone else might follow one day. Toward the house. Toward the map. Toward the chair. I walked slowly back into the bedroom. The chair was still there. Waiting. And when I finally sat down, the house became quiet again. Perfectly quiet. Because now, it had someone new. Someone who would wait. For the next visitor.